Hey, what's up everyone? This is Silver Slayer. Thank you for tuning into this video. You see these beautiful shirts presented in front of you? They're designed by me. Go buy one, link in the description. So, before we jump into the subject, I gotta give some backstory. This right here is the United States debt clock. It's literally usdebtclock.org showing a live counter of our national debt. You see this number up here? That's 26,705,937,000,000. And you see it's going up. It's going to hit 27 trillion soon. The number is never going down. It's never going to go in the green. We are spinning out of control. We're crashing to the ground and nobody knows what to do about it. So they jokingly, to try to fix this problem, mentioned bringing back the gold standard. When our money was backed by gold and silver, once upon a time, we didn't have this debt, right? This video is going to explain why it's not really possible to go back to a gold standard. Not only is this article sharing their opinion on it, but I'm going to share why I don't think it's possible either. Not saying that I don't think gold's a great investment, because gold and silver are by far the best, safest, smartest, most profitable investments. But in today's time, it just wouldn't work. So with that said, I would love to hear your input, your insight on this topic. Let's jump more into it. The link to this article from Seeking Alpha will be in the description. So the US dollar back on the gold standard never happened. Recently, there's been quite a bit of chatter about the need and or desire to see the United States money go back into the gold standard. This may be due to the US printing trillions upon trillions of US dollars to simulate recovery. Simulate recovery, right? It's not really recovering. We're putting a band-aid on a very deep wound. From this pandemic, which also adds mightily to the US debt load, right? We're just trying to throw dollars at this, thinking that the dollar is going to fix the problem, when it's actually only making the problem much worse. Or it may be because of the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's recent policy speech, which indicates letting the willingness to let inflation run a bit hotter than in the past. Regardless of the debt load and any Federal Reserve policy change, it is highly unlikely the US or the world would go back to the gold standard. Now, when we look at countries, because here's the thought from you, from a person looking, an outsider looking in, they would say, well, what would happen then? If the dollar crashes, what would happen? Well, we're in an interesting point right now, a point in time. Because previously, when third world countries, when their currency would collapse or crash or literally become non-existent, what happens is their money is extremely inflated to a point where an American dollar would be or have the purchasing power of like 3 cents. So if you want to go buy something for $5, you would literally be handing over hundreds, if not thousands, of these $1 bills, because their money is so worthless. They carry their money in trash bags. They weigh their money on scales because it would take too long to single-handedly count each one of those bills. So that's why you see like the Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill, etc. And then it falls off the grid. They usually then go to, well, nowadays, go to Bitcoin, right? It's not always that easy, because Bitcoin is a decentralized platform, right? It's a network. But nowadays, countries are doing that, and Bitcoin's actually played a huge role in the success of some countries. Now, the sticky part is the interesting part is the United States is the world's reserve currency. It's what all the other countries kind of opt into to say, okay, this is the standard. China, other countries are backing out. They're losing faith in the United States. This pandemic has exposed how broke we really are, and people are starting to notice it. And the worst part is the dollar isn't backed by anything anymore. It's literally based off of the dollar's value is based off of how much people think it's worth. So if people start to think it's not worth much, then that's bad territory. And that's probably why people are saying we need to bring back the gold standard so our money is backed by something with real value. But we're $27 trillion in debt. Do you think we can make all that up with gold or back it by gold or find some way to incorporate gold with a number that massive? There's already a silver and gold shortage on our hands. Apart from all this, as soon as they stepped away from a gold and silver standard, we were doomed, set up to fail, literally. So, he even goes to say, regardless of the debt load and any federal policy change, it is highly unlikely the US or the world would go back to the gold standard. That doesn't mean I am not bullish on gold, just the opposite. I've never been more bullish on gold in my life. So, recently I've been reading about, or he's been reading about, one of the gold bug's favorite topics, the gold standard. I've even had a plethora of comments on some of my articles following and seeking alpha users that imply the end is near. We're headed back to the gold standard. It will never happen. But that doesn't mean I am not bullish on gold. I very much am. And if the end isn't near, right, my thought on this, if the end isn't near, it wouldn't really be a quote-unquote gold standard. It would more be a gold confiscation, right, or precious metals for bartering. When I was talking about my video, when the government put in legal action to confiscate people's gold, it was always in times of extreme economic depression, right? It's when times are terrible. When there's an economic depression, when the government is hit hard, they can take people's gold. Literally, it's happened several times throughout history. But nowadays, I don't think it can. It's still legal, right? But I don't think it would happen in today's time or with today's standards. So, to grasp the long-term value of gold as a preservation of wealth tool, an investor need only read this anecdote. In the early 1900s, a man with a 1-ounce US gold coin with a face value of $20 could buy a very nice suit, shirt, belt, tie, and a pair of shoes. Today, what could that $20 buy you? Maybe a belt? Yes, that 1 ounce of gold, currently worth $1,964, can easily buy that man a very nice suit, shirt, belt, tie, pair of shoes. The point is obvious. Gold holds its value, the paper currencies do not. Gold is a tool for the preservation of wealth. I'm actually going to throw a better anecdote. I'm going to throw a better, let's say, metaphor, a better way to break this guy's point down. Back in the day, you could buy a gallon of gas for 50 cents, right? Back then, you can give the store clerk a 50-cent walking liberty, and that would buy your gallon of gas. Today, that same coin, that same walking liberty can buy you a gallon of gas. The same coin, one coin in your pocket from back then, one coin, the same coin in your pocket today, can still buy you that same gallon of gas. Gas isn't 50 cents though anymore, Silver Slayer. I know. Back in the day, it was sold for its, or transferred, or transacted for its face value. Nowadays, I could take that walking liberty to the local coin shop, sell it for $7, $8, and buy myself a gallon of gas. Silver is timeless. Precious metals are timeless. Preservation of wealth as the dollar decreases. You're putting your money into something that holds its value because the thing that the quote unquote money is crashing. So here's some stuff about the United States debt. So you can see public debt of the United States of America from July 2019 to July 2020 by the month. Obviously, things got crazy with the pandemic. So, as a result, and combined with the facts that the pandemic transmission rates are still widespread, unemployment rate over 10%, tens of thousands of small businesses closed, polls show up to 40% of Americans wouldn't take the vaccine, even if it was available. So these developments have led some, including myself, to wonder if the US dollar could lose its status as the global reserve currency of choice, right? And that's what I was talking about earlier in the video. And as expected, we have seen the US dollar dramatically weaken since the onset of this pandemic and the lack of success in containing it. So historically, global investors have embraced the US dollar in times of crisis, right? And right after pandemic hit in March, that again was the case. But since then, the US dollar has sold off 10.4% from its high and is now down 4.4%. And that's interesting because gold and silver prices are directly correlated to the dollar index, right? Combined with Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's recent speech, also this goes into historical highs at 2% before raising interest rates. The bottom line again is that the US interest rates are likely to stay low for a long time. Long time. The good news, it makes the cost of issuing all the debt discussed previously much cheaper. So now they're talking about the gold standard. So at the time, the US debt hadn't yet crossed 20 trillion, and of course the Fed balance sheet has greatly expanded as well. So after all, it was France exchanging its US dollar currency note for gold. That was the final straw that forced Nixon to end international convertibility of the US dollar to gold on August 15th, 1971. Certainly, US gold reserves have not kept pace with the rapid debasement of the US dollar since then. So if it was a problem in 1971, it's a much bigger problem today. And that's what I was talking about, right? The whole reason, you have to look at the whole reason the gold standard ended to understand why it couldn't happen today. So yet some investors / historians want to revisit the empires of Rome and the UK and point out how debasement of those currencies led those powers losing their debt. And they're talking about the fiat-based system, which never worked. But something else has to be implicated, and I think it has to be more digital. Not saying it's going to be cryptocurrency, not saying it's going to be Bitcoin, but it would more likely be something like Ripple. Ripple is a cryptocurrency also controlled by a central bank. So it's a decentralized coin that's in control from a centralized exchange, right? It's kind of opting into both worlds. So it is interesting, and I think that would be the coin, if anything, would be a new form of currency. So the central banks can still control it on a decentralized and fully, a fully functioning global server on the blockchain that transacts anything instantly. I think that's really fascinating that this is a thing, but there's a lot of tweaks and adjustments that need to happen. So anyways, let's try to wrap this up, because this is a long article. Like I said, link is in the description if you want to keep reading on. I don't like my videos going too long, so I'm going to go to the summary and conclusion. The US, whether its currency loses its status as the global reserve currency of choice or not, will not be going back to the gold standard. Neither will any other country on earth. In my opinion, what is likely to happen is SDRs will play a growing and more important role in a global trade as the world moves away from the US dollar. I also predict that Chinese yen will also play an increasingly larger role in the basket of currencies that comprise an SDR. What can Americans do to preserve their wealth through such developments? Buy gold and silver, right? It's that easy. It's that easy. A lot of people don't know about gold and silver. The worst part is a lot of people don't even know that any of this stuff is happening, right? That's the worst part. Imagine not even knowing this is happening, or not wanting to admit it or acknowledge that it is, and just trying to live life blindfolded, right? Blindfolded, brainwashed, thinking that we're still the richest country even though we are flat broke, poor, in debt. Gold and silver is the only alternative. And I say alternative because there is no solution. We are too deep in the hole. We're trying to replace debt with more debt. It's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card with another credit card. It's not going to work. It's going to catch up. You're going to get bit in the butt, right? It's useless. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. If you thought this video was educational, informational, or at least just entertaining, make sure to smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. This was Silver Slayer. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.